AI that predicts what shoppers will buy. It's already here. So Ethan shared research showing that large language models such as ChatGPT, Grok, etc., can predict actual purchase intent with up to 90% accuracy by simulating customer personas, viewing product images, and generating feedback. The models outperform traditional machine learning methods without any fine tuning or specialized training. For Amazon sellers, this breakthrough could revolutionize product testing, ad optimization, and listing strategy by allowing AI to forecast buyer reactions before launch. It points to a future where sellers can validate product market fit instantly using AI-driven customer simulations. So we've talked a little bit about AI earlier and how sometimes really good, sometimes really bad. So up to 90% accuracy is pretty good. So I'm curious if you guys have played with this at all with launching. I know none of us are exclusively private label companies, but I believe you've done some private label, Eric, and Chris, I'm sure you've worked with a lot of private label people. Have you had anybody or talked to anybody that's used this kind of market research?
So we have not. It's really interesting. Other than anecdotally, we use ChatGPT and Grok all the time for things. We tend to trust our own market research and our own data farming around this. But it's interesting. I don't know if I would ever trust this 100% over our methods that we've used in the past, but laying this on top seems like a really good idea.
Yeah, this wasn't as hot of a story. We did our annual conference. We did it in France this year, which was a good 4 months ago now. And I don't remember a ton of talk about this then. I think this kind of crested over the summer or maybe last month. But I think certainly by Q1, this will be a hot topic with all. We work mostly with private label brands. We work with some resellers, but generally as a rule, not so much anymore. And any responsible brand would be tinkering with this, at least in the early stages right now, because whatever version of this is in existence and commonly used 6 to 9 months from now, they're going to want mastery of that as quickly as possible, right? So,
yeah, I'm with you, Eric, definitely on adding this to your tool bag, right? And it's only going to get better, but one of the keys, though, is that you have to put in your customer demographic profile. And I don't know about you guys with the clients that you work with, but I find a lot of the people don't know their customer demographic that well as they should know it anyways.
Really? Even with all the resources and tools out there, you think it's largely in the dark?
If they do think they know it, it's not usually 100% accurate. Like what they think in their mind is their demographic is not necessarily backed up when you look at the Amazon tools in who's purchasing their products, for example.
Okay.
So that'll be a key, because if you got to know your customer and make sure you're putting in the proper demographics, if you're, because garbage in, garbage out, as they say. So you got to make sure you know that inside and out. And if it's a brand new product launch, you may not necessarily know that. But, it's a tool that you can use on top of everything else you're doing. So, yeah, I guess on top of that, what do you guys do with your clients in terms of helping them make sure they're targeting their demographic that they're supposed to on Amazon? This might be more for Eric, Chris, since you're more helping people who are already selling and having problems. But do you have any specific tools, Eric, that you use to help your clients determine that?
So we usually work with them, and a lot of times there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there in the Amazon world, as you know. A lot of the customers, by the time they reach us, it is like disaster mode. And so their picture is 15 years old and it's of the wrong thing. They're not into dialing it in, but once we work with them for, let's say, a year and just get the wheels back on the track, then we start thinking about, okay, what are we going to start testing? And we don't necessarily use any specific tools. We go back to the client, put our knowledge with their knowledge and say, what's changed in what's changed? What do you know like that's changed in your field or within this particular product? And sometimes one of the examples I give is like with 3M, they sell glues and adhesives, and so they're not an exclusive partner with us at all, but we can do some things with listings with them. As things change with glues and adhesives, cars used to be made out of steel and aluminum, and now there's a lot of plastic. And so what kind of glues and adhesives do you need to use? And what kind of cars do you need to show on certain listings that make sense today that didn't make sense 5 years ago? And so AI can work with that, but a lot of times we just go straight to the source. Like what does the brand know about their product and their customer first?
Yep. Yeah. And definitely they should have data on that if it's a product that's been selling a while. And if they're a brand new, just launching kind of product, then basically diving into their top competitors on Amazon and outside of Amazon and try to determine what the demographic is from those competitors, which unfortunately you can't get as much information on your competitors as you can your own brand on Amazon. But you can get a pretty good sense based on their images and stuff on who they're targeting and such. You're assuming that they know who they're targeting. But if you look at enough of your competitors and you see all their images are of 60-year-old men, well, then that's probably your demographic that you're aiming at, most likely. But you can also use ChatGPT or AI to find out what your demographic is, at least see what it thinks the demographic is for your kind of product as well. So all those kind of tools that you can use and weave everything together to figure that out. All right, let's go ahead and jump on to our last story here. Flip over. So German cartel office investigating Temu over merchant price influencing. So Germany's antitrust regulator has launched an investigation into Temu for allegedly influencing how third-party merchants price their products on its marketplace. Authorities suspect that Temu may be imposing restrictions that limit competition and could lead to higher prices across other platforms. For Amazon sellers, this highlights the increasing global scrutiny on e-commerce pricing practices, especially around price parity and control over third-party listings. As regulators target aggressive marketplace tactics, Amazon sellers should expect continued policy tightening and greater oversight in Europe and beyond. So this kind of goes well with the news that, Amazon is also being sued over this. There's an ongoing lawsuit over buy box suppression and manipulation of pricing. So wanted to get your guys' thoughts on where you see that going, and will we eventually maybe see a time where we don't have suppressed buy boxes and such on Amazon, or you think they'll keep pushing that?
If it's you're talking about the antitrust lawsuit?
Correct. Yeah.
That's probably going to be settled. I don't know if I have enough info to predict where the larger antitrust lawsuit's going. But I think eventually this will be solved to the point where there'll be a yes or no of whether or not Amazon can continue to make these price parity demands, or they'll just agree to some sort of middle ground on it. Mm-hmm. But for now, Amazon is kind of used to getting what it wants. So forcing people to keep the same prices across all platforms seems to be, pending the result of that settlement/lawsuit, the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and the tricky thing is just living in a capitalist world. Some of this you just have to deal with, because at the end of the day, and this is the question the courts are going to have to decide. Like, I don't have to abide by Amazon's rules because I don't have to sell on Amazon. Now, that happens to be a pretty big part of what we do. But anybody has that choice. You can open up a shop, put out a shingle, and sell whatever you want to sell. Will the courts decide that Amazon is like bigger than that? I don't know. Depends who's in power, what judge you have. Which way the wind is blowing politically, I think makes a difference. Mm-hmm. and ultimately, I think the American voter / consumer wants some sort of fairness. So I don't know where I'd put my chips on that particular one. And if it goes one way, if Amazon all of a sudden can't do buy box suppression, will there be other ways that they can manipulate the market? And they're pretty smart people over there. So my guess is they're not going to stop just because the government tells them one thing. They'll just work their way around it.
Maybe your item would suddenly not be available to ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that or it just
You can
more
buy it.
subtly that you stop getting displayed as much in searches.
Right.
Be more subtle about it. Those kind of things are harder to pick up on. Like,
Right.
oh, suddenly I dropped from rank 2 to 25.
Mhm.
And how do you prove that was because your price is lower on your Shopify store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough to
So-
present real-time legal arguments when it's happening in real time, but the actual court argument happens 2 years down the road.
Yeah. And Amazon's not going to open source their algorithm anytime
Right.
soon. So,
Right.
yeah. But, we're talking about the US, but of course, this is over in Germany and the EU, and they tend to be much more warm towards government, regulations and coming down on these kind of things. And when it happens over there, a lot of times it can trickle back over here. So, if they start hammering Temu and Amazon on these price fixing policies, then we'll probably see changes over here as well, regardless of how the lawsuit comes down over here.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're definitely correct, Eric, that we live in a capitalist society and people have choices. But at the same time, it definitely is. It seems wrong to me that Amazon is gonna have giant fees and then force us to charge the same price on our Shopify store that doesn't have them to sell the product. There's definitely something not morally right about that.
Agreed. I'm with you.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Whether we can do anything about it or should do anything about it in a capitalist society, that's another question. But morally, definitely not right. But big business is definitely not always moral, as we all know.
I mean, if it doesn't get resolved now through whatever attention, scrutiny from the FTC, from the antitrust lawsuit, whatever, if this is not the occasion, then what would the future occasion be?
Mhm.
Because if they power past this unscathed, then they're, you're looking at years ahead of kind of nothing else as an obstacle. So
Yeah, it's true. And at the same time, the negative publicity that Amazon gets over things like this and lots of other things can also have the effect of, lifting competitors like Walmart and, even Temu and Shine and things like that. So you can have that effect as well if Amazon is accused of price fixing and customers don't like that, and that pushes some of them to maybe use Walmart, or as sellers, fees keep going up. So we're like, hey, maybe I'm going to try this Walmart thing and see how it goes. And that will potentially lift up competition, but we'll have to see how that plays out.
Well, as Shopify grows, I mean, to me, this is not about the Shopify seller. There's no seller big enough to take on Amazon, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But could Shopify take on Amazon on behalf of sellers? That'd be interesting to me. Or does Walmart? Walmart could certainly take on Amazon in this. If they ever, to Chris's point, is Walmart really interested in their marketplace business? I mean, yeah, but not like Amazon.
To me, Shopify has the biggest opportunity that it's missing right now. If Shopify was to create a marketplace, basically just by allowing all their Shopify stores to opt in, do you want your products to show up on this marketplace? And combine that with, the search functionality of ChatGPT or some other AI system, I think they could make a really good play for it, but it's just a matter of if they have the will to do it.